Knowing how to build an app is important, but that's really half the battle because there's so many other things that you need to know in order to have a successful experience instead of just an app that you built. And so in this video, we are going to be covering what those things are, and I'm going to be showing you exactly what you need to do. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I demonstrate on this channel are going to be available to view and or clone from my amazing Patreon page. And if you're still not a member of our amazing, rapidly growing Patreon community, then you can learn more about it via the link in the description below the video. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you things that you have to do in addition to building your app. And more specifically, we are going to be talking about different flows that you have to build out that are going to enhance the user experience. Now, here I am inside of Flutterflow, and I built a sample app in order to show you these different functionalities that are going to get your users to love your app and hopefully get you to make more money with your apps and or your software business as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and run this app that I built, and I'm also gonna be showing you the different flows that I've also built using an amazing tool called BuildShip that are going to be very, very important for this awesome user experience. All right, so here's our app. And as you can see, we have the standard screen. We have a list view with different things. We have different categories. We even have a search feature with some filters, etc., etc. But the most important thing that I want to draw your attention to is this thing right here, right? It says here, your subscription is expiring, and then it says 7 days from now. So we actually are telling the user that, hey, you know, you are about to lose your benefits. You're about to, you know, your membership is about to expire, okay? And so we can obviously make this clickable and have the user click and renew their membership and make sure that they don't lose access to this app, okay? And now this is the UI part, okay? So if we go back to our Flutterflow, this is actually the UI, right? So if you come over here, we have this row, and it's done using a conditional functionality, okay? So the user essentially sees this when, you know, the end date of their membership is within 7 days, meaning that if their membership ends in like 14 days, they're not going to be seeing this. But if it ends in like 5 days or 3 days, they're going to be seeing this. Now, this is only one half of the feature, right? We actually need to send an email to the user. We need to actually tell the user, hey, you know, your membership is expiring. Click here to renew. And the way that we're going to be implementing this feature is by using an awesome tool called BuildShip. And this is a tool that I've talked about many times on this channel. And this is really an awesome tool because you can build awesome functionality. You can build awesome flows. And so I went ahead and built out several flows that I'm going to be talking about throughout the course of this video. But the first flow that I want to show you is this subscription expiring flow. And so how exactly does this flow work? Well, when you create a flow, the first thing that you need to do is you need to create a trigger, okay? And so what exactly is going to be triggering our flow? Is this going to be a HTTP request? Is this going to be, you know, a record being modified, inserted, updated, deleted in our Supabase or Firebase, etc., etc.? Now, in this case, it's going to be none of the above. It's going to be a trigger that is going to get triggered via a set schedule. And so in this case, we're using this schedule cron. And in this case, it's going to run exactly at midnight every single day. And so every single day it's going to run, and it's going to check which users have their membership expiring within 7 days. Okay, so the next thing we're doing is we're doing this get row, but we are using a very specific filter. We're saying that, hey, tell us where the ending date is less than 7 days from the current date. And so if today is the 1st of January and their membership ends in like 3 days, well, we want to know about this user. We want to know more about this user. And then what we're doing that is we are looping through the users whose membership is expiring within 7 days. And here I have a loop, right? So I have this loop right here, and inside this here, I have the body of the loop. And so what I'm doing here is I'm logging this message and then I'm sending an email. Okay, so I'm using something called SendGrid, which is a service that you can use to send emails. So it's a great service. They have a very generous free plan that you can kind of get started with. And this is exactly what I'm using here. Here I have my API key. Here I have the from address, the from name. I have the to address where I'm pulling in the email from the actual Supabase record there. And I have the email body. And the email body is very simple. We're going to be telling the user, hey, your subscription is expiring in less than a week. Renew your subscription now, okay? And so let me show you how this works. And so instead of us waiting until midnight for this flow to execute, we can simply click here on test and we can run this flow right now. And so I'm going to click on test and it's going to go ahead and build this flow out. It's going to compile it. It's going to upload it onto Google Cloud and then it's going to execute it. Okay, so now it's executing it right here. There's this node executed. Okay, so it finished executing and hopefully we have some users whose membership is expiring within a week, and which means we should get emails. And as you can see, we've just got 4 emails. So as you can see, 0 minutes ago, and this is what it says: your subscription is expiring in less than a week, and it actually shows the date. Okay, so maybe in your production app, you can kind of format this date to make it look a little bit nicer. But in our testing, this is exactly what we want because we can see exactly what's happening, okay? So here are the ending dates for the memberships for each of these users. And actually, if we go back to our Supabase, you can see that we have 4 users here and their memberships are expiring within 7 days. Okay, all of these users, their memberships are expiring within 7 days. And that is why we got 4 emails here. And as you can see, I've set this test email as an email that's connected to each one of these users. Of course, in your production app, this email here is going to be the actual user's email. But because I'm testing this app, I've set this as my test email. And that is why I've gotten these 4 emails for each one of these users. So this is very useful functionality, not only because it provides uninterrupted service to your users, but also because it can potentially make you more money by alerting each of these users whose membership is about to expire and prompting them to renew. And actually, this is something that you see everywhere, right? This is something that you see in pretty much most of the SaaS apps that you're using, at least with the SaaS apps that I am using, right? They actually tell me that, hey, your membership is about to expire within 3 days, within 7 days. Sometimes it's above on the page. Sometimes it's in the profile somewhere, but this is a feature that you're going to be using all the time. Now, the next feature that I want to show you is user feedback. Okay, so here we are in this app. This is the second page, and we have a feedback form, okay? So this is the user that I'm logged in now, okay? So I can see my email here, my profile picture, and here it's asking us how can we improve. And now let's say we've been using this app, but we're not big fans of this app for various reasons. So let's go ahead and leave negative feedback. Let's go ahead and leave constructive criticism. So we can do something like this. This app is great, but very slow, and customer service is very poor. And so we did not have the best experience with this app. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on send. This thing here says feedback submitted. Now, if we go back to our email account, we just received a new email. So let's go ahead and take a look at this email. And guess what it says? It says here, received negative feedback. This app is great, but very slow, and customer service is very poor. Now, let's say on the other hand, I really had a good experience with this app. I enjoyed using it. I'm going to continue to pay for it, and I'm going to tell all my friends about it. And in that case, I'm going to leave positive feedback. So I'm going to say, awesome apps, love using it. Okay, I'm gonna click send. Feedback has been submitted, and let's go and see if we get any emails here. And we are not getting any emails. Okay, and that is because we have a custom flow that sends an email anytime we have negative feedback, okay? We do not get any emails if there is positive feedback, okay? So how exactly is this done? Well, let me go ahead and show you. We're gonna jump back into BuildShip, and here I created a custom flow that listens for new records being created on a specific table. So we're using a super-based trigger in this case, which listens for insert events on this A feedback table. And what is this A feedback table that you ask? Well, let me go ahead and show you. This is the table here, A feedback, and it's a very, very simple table. Okay, all we're doing is just storing various feedbacks from potential customers. Now, obviously, in your production app, you want to be storing the user ID at least, who is the actual person that's leaving the feedback, right? Leaving the feedback for your app. But in this case, we're just storing the actual feedback from our Flutterflow app, right? So the user enters it here, we create a record here, and our BuildShip flow automatically monitors new events. And so once we get this new event, once we get a new record, we use OpenAI ChatGPT to analyze the feedback. Okay, so here I have a system prompt. I'm just saying I will provide you with a feedback and I want you to analyze it and tell me if it's negative. Return a response in JSON format, whether the feedback is positive or negative, in the feedback field. Okay, and here we have the user prompt, and the user prompt is the actual feedback. Okay, so whatever the person enters in that feedback form, that becomes the user prompt. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. So we can simply click here and we can test it out, right? So this is the user prompt, which means this is the feedback, and the system prompt is the same. So if we have this feedback, if a user leaves this feedback, and if we run it, we obviously expect positive feedback. So let's go ahead and see what happens. So it says here, feedback is positive. Now, let's say the user leaves negative feedback. This app is terrible. Okay, let's go ahead and run it. We should expect a different result. Feedback is negative. And so this is awesome because we can use ChatGPT to tell us whether the feedback is positive or negative. And then later on, I am parsing the JSON, I'm logging the message, and then I have my branch, right? So depending on if the feedback is positive, we don't do anything, right? So here I have a log message just for testing. But if the feedback is negative, we use SendGrid API to send an email. And just like with the previous flow, we send an email, and that is why you were seeing those emails for negative feedback, but you did not see any email for positive feedback. And obviously you are free to customize this flow. You can get it to do anything that you want, but you gotta admit, right? You gotta admit this is very, very useful functionality in order to monitor your user's experience in real time. And that way you can see immediately if some users are not happy with your app, while ignore the cases where the users are happy with your app. And obviously you can go further, right? You can get ChatGPT to rank different feedbacks, maybe from 1 to 5, 5 being very positive, 1 being very negative. You can get it to do all kinds of things, but regardless what you decide to do, this flow is going to be very, very useful in pretty much any kind of app that you're going to be building. Now, the next scenario that I want to show you is going to be a scenario that many of you are going to absolutely love. And this is an abandonment cart reminder. Okay, so let's say you're building an e-commerce app, or let's say you're building any kind of an app where a user needs to purchase something, and before they purchase it, they need to place it into a shopping cart. And obviously this could be an e-commerce app, right? Something like Amazon, but shopping cart functionality can be used by all kinds of apps, right? So an app for consulting, and the app for like a freelance, like a Fiverr kind of app, right? Like a freelance marketplace, any kind of an app where a user is going to be purchasing something. It's going to be a good idea to have a shopping cart in between, right? And so here we have a shopping cart that we are displaying, okay? And this is a special type of shopping cart because we are storing it in our Superbase, we actually have a table here called a shopping cart. So these are the records that you saw in the app. And, we have 3 products here: Nike Air, Nike Air Force One, Nike Zoom X. We have the price, and here we have the timestamps that specify when was this product placed into a shopping cart. And another field that we have here is this email field. Now, of course, in your production app, you're probably not going to have an email field, as part of your shopping cart table. You're probably going to have this email field somewhere else, and you're going to be linking the shopping cart to the user by the user ID. But here I'm just simplifying things. But most importantly, we know when the user added a particular item to the shopping cart, okay? And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna be monitoring the shopping cart, and we're gonna send an email to the user, and we're gonna say, hey, you have an item in your shopping cart that's older than 24 hours. So meaning that, 24 hours or more has passed since you've added this item. Because if you were gonna purchase this item, then, the flow is gonna be that, once you purchase it, we remove it from the shopping cart, right? But because this item is still in the shopping cart and more than 24 hours has elapsed, that means that the person did not purchase it properly, and we need to send an email. And so let me go ahead and show you this amazing flow. This is this flow here. And once again, we triggered this flow via a cron or a cron tab. Okay, so we have a scheduled trigger. And here, instead of running this workflow every day, as was the case with one of the previous workflows where we triggered it at midnight, here we are running it every hour, because we want to know as soon as 24 hours has elapsed or more to send the user the email. And so every hour this workflow is triggered. And the next thing that we're doing is we're checking whether there are any records, meaning the items in the shopping cart, that are older than 24 hours. And so here I have my get row, I have my API key, API URL, I have the table name, and I have a very specific filter. And here I'm creating a specific Superbase filter that's going to only pull up the records that are older than 24 hours. And once we get these records, we are going to be sending an email to the specific user that has placed that item into the shopping cart. And because here we have the emails right here, it's fairly straightforward. Okay, so here I have my email flow. And so let's go ahead and test this out and see if we get any emails for any of the products that may be in our shopping cart that have been there more than 24 hours. So I'm going to click on test. We're going to test this workflow here, and our workflow has executed. And let's go ahead and see if we got any emails here. And as you can see, we have a new email here. We're going to say show, and here we have an email that's telling us, don't miss out on this amazing product, Nike Air, order it now. And as you can see, this is an email that we have just received. Now, this workflow here is simplified. It's simplified because instead of looping over all the records in the shopping cart that are older than 24 hours, we're just sending in the first one, okay? And as the case is here, this is this record here. And as you can see, this date here is older than 24 hours from the time that I'm recording this video. It's not older by a lot, but it's still older than 24 hours. It's like 27 hours or so. And so these records here are fairly stale, except this one. And we've gotten an email for this record because we have a simplified flow. And so as you can see, this flow works out perfectly because it checks which records have been there for more than 24 hours and sends an email to the specific user. And just like how I mentioned, you're probably not going to be storing this email on each shopping cart record. You're going to have the shopping cart tied to a specific user ID, and that user ID is going to have an email associated with it. Okay, so these are all semantics, but the most important thing here is this flow here. And you got to admit, recovering abandoned shopping carts should be at the top of your list anytime you build any kind of a e-commerce app or just any app that uses the shopping cart functionality, because this will enable you to capture the orders that did not go all the way to the end, where the user did not end up purchasing the product. So this is an amazing functionality. And so if you're looking to build an app where users are going to have this flow where they're going to be adding things to their shopping carts and then they're going to be purchasing these products, then this should be an indispensable part of your app. I know I'm definitely going to be implementing similar flows anytime I'm going to be building a shopping cart type app. Last but not least, I want to show you a fairly simple flow, but still a very powerful and an important flow nonetheless. Now, first, let me show you what problems this flow solves. So if you're using Supabase for user authentication to figure out who is logging in, to figure out who is the active user, then typically you're going to be using this auth table, right? So if you go into auth, you're going to have this users table. Now, this users table is going to contain records for all the users that are going to have accounts in your Supabase authentication subsystem, right? So anytime a user creates an account, whether they register or whether you create that account manually, that user is going to be here. Now, the issue with this setup and really the limitation of the setup is that this is read-only, right? So I cannot, I cannot add more fields. I cannot really work with this table. This table is provided as is. You can't really add, new functionality, new metadata, etc., etc. And so what you want to do, and this is kind of the recommendation, is you want to go ahead and create another table. And so if you head over to public here, I have this users ext table, okay? And this is a table that I've created pretty much in all my Supabase tutorial videos. If you've seen those, then chances are you've seen me creating this table. And the idea here is we're going to be creating this table and we're going to be creating records in this table that are going to have a one-to-one relationship to each of the users, meaning that for each user, we're going to have one record. This is not going to be a one-to-many relationship. This is not going to be a, many-to-many relationship. It's just one-to-one. And so as you can see, I have here 3 records with each of them corresponding to a specific user. And this is a table that we create. So obviously we can create as many fields that we want. We can store any additional data that we want. And this is going to be the case with most of your apps, right? If it's going to be a complex app that you're going to be building, you may want to store things like the profile URL, when the subscription was started, when the subscription ends, and maybe, things like nickname, username, etc., etc. Essentially, any piece of data that you want to have associated with the user. Now, the issue here is that when you create a user, that user record is only created in that first table. Well, if you're going to be building an app that relies on the second table, as is the case with most of the apps that you're going to be building, then it's going to be ideal for you to create a record in this table automatically, right? There's no need for you to have a record there and then go here and create it manually or create it some other way. You want to have a record here created automatically, and that is exactly what this flow does, right? We have a Supabase trigger and we have it on insert for our schema auth and table name user. So anytime a new user is created manually or a new user is registered, this thing is going to be triggered. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new row in this users extension table. Okay, so let me show you how this works. And so let's say I go back to my Supabase here and I go to this authentication here and I add a user manually. Okay, so I come over here, I create a new user, and let's say this is t@t.com, and we type in the password, we have auto confirm user, and I say create the user. Okay, and here's the new user that was just created. Now, if you go back to our tables here, we should see this user being created here as well. And as you can see, this is this new record that was just inserted here. We had 3 records before, now we have 4 records. And if we click here, you're going to see that this record is referencing this new user that we've created here. And that was done thanks to this BuildShip workflow. And now I can log back in as that user and the app is going to be working as expected. Let me show you. So I'm going to log in here, click sign in. And if I go to the user's profile, I see the user profile picture that was created for us automatically. Okay. And I see the user here, because if you did not create that record in that second table automatically, this page would not load because it wouldn't be able to pull the information from that second table. And so it's a good idea whenever you create a new user or a new user registers or you create this user manually. Essentially, when there is a new user record in that first table, you want to have a corresponding record in the second table. You want those tables to always be linked together, right? You always want to make sure you have that corresponding record in the second table as well. And this is exactly what this simple but very powerful and very useful BuildShip workflow allows us to do. And all in all, this is just scraping the top of this surface. There's so many other workflows that you can create that can do a lot of interesting things. But essentially, my mission with this video was to show you how indispensable these workflows are in addition to actually building your app. Because a lot of people think that all you really need to do is build out your app and you're finished. Well, no, you're not finished. You still need to create workflows that improve the user experience and make your life as a developer a lot more enjoyable. And so definitely check out BuildShip, see if you can put some of these workflows to use or experiment with different workflows that are going to be useful in your specific app use case. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video and you're looking to develop more amazing apps with BuildShip, then you definitely need to join our amazing Patreon community, because one of the things that you're going to immediately get access when you join our amazing Patreon community is a deep dive tutorial that I recorded exclusively for our Patreon members. And so if you see the value in this tool, you're definitely going to see the value in this Patreon exclusive masterclass video that I recorded and made available to our amazing Patreon members. But of course, that's not all. That's just the beginning. You're going to get access to all the apps, including this app, so you'll be able to view and or clone it. You're also going to get access to more content such as Q&As, other masterclass videos, behind the scenes content, and a lot more content. But above all, when you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work. And so if you've gotten any value from any of the videos that I've created, including this one, you're going to get even more value when you join our amazing, rapidly growing Patreon community. And so if any of that sounds like it's going to provide you with some value, help you in your no-code development, then definitely take a look and see what you'll find inside. And you can do that via the link just below the video.